This is week 6, and we will be covering chapter 5, the impact of stress on health conditions. And I really hope that everyone listens to this podcast. If you're here, you are, so that's good. I often give clues as to what's coming this week, as well as tips and advice on how to approach the work each week. So it really is helpful that you listen to these podcasts. Of course, I always give you an overview of what to expect for the week. So this is sort of like there to keep you on track and make sure that you're not forgetting anything. It might even be good to just print this out, even just print this window might be helpful. But that way you're making sure that you get everything in there. I've put a couple different things in there this week, so I just want to go through these with you. I've got the objectives here for you, along with a podcast overview. So if you click here, I walk you through each of these and I tell you a little bit about the chapter and what to expect and what to focus on. That will help you with your reading. And I do want to say that this is a class that you have to be doing the reading. You don't want to be relying solely on the lecture slides. The lecture slides are only there to help illustrate certain points, highlight some key items, to make sure that you're kind of following along right. But the lecture slides are not all inclusive. That's why you have a book, and that's why I want you to read the book. Everything that's outlined in the objectives is what you're responsible for in terms of what you can be tested on. So the questions from the test come directly from the publishers of your textbook. So that's a big clue that there's a heavy emphasis on what you're reading. And the lecture slides are just meant to help make things a little bit more clear and guide you along a little bit better. I'd also recommend checking out this note-taking and reading tips that I put here. It's just a link, and it will take you to a resource that's really good. It uses the SQ3R method, which some of you may have learned way back in high school. It's still completely relevant for college, even grad school. I used this method for my note-taking. And to use it while I was reading. So it's a way of processing what you're reading in a specific method to make sure that you're actually engaging in the reading and not just passively reading and not missing anything. So make sure you check that out. I think it will help with working through the material this week. I've also posted the video again. This is the same video I've posted. This is the third week now. So that should also be another big clue that I really want you to know this video. It's got everything in it. And again, this week we're going over all the different health conditions that are affected by stress, caused by stress, exacerbated by stress. And this, documentary really covers a lot of those. It covers gastrointestinal issues. It covers type A behavior and heart disease. It covers even cancer. It covers trauma and its relationship to stress. So it's really chock full with all of that. And so I would recommend, giving it a watch through again or going back to certain parts that are related to this week's material. And also, I might mention really quickly, it is talked about in this week's reading in the McGonigal book, The Upside of Stress. So you're going to be reading chapter 2 in The Upside of Stress. It's called Beyond Fight or Flight. So she really gets into talking about why fight or flight that you've already learned about a couple weeks ago is a too simplistic way of looking at the stress response. How our bodies are designed and built for much more than just fight or flight. And in fact, in the day-to-day of our lives, we're dealing with stress kind of continuously. It's not just, fight or flight when something is bothering us or something is about to put us in danger. So she talks actually in the chapter about Robert Sapolsky, who is the lead scientist that's featured in this documentary, and his work is featured here. She talks about a lot of his work, so it's a nice piggybacking of his research that she brings up as well. So for your discussion this week, I've also posted the Cite as you write instructions again. I've noticed that there are still people who, I don't know if you haven't looked at these or you're just, depending on how you've always cited and kind of haven't paid attention to how I want you to cite. But it's really very simple. It's a one-page document that just gives you examples of how to cite in APA format. And really the only sources you're using are the McGonigal book and the Harrington textbook. So, you should be citing correctly in APA format. And if you're not sure how to do that, just check out this document. Okay, that's what it's there for. You don't want to be missing points on that kind of stuff. Those are easy points you should be getting. So check that out before you approach this week's discussion. And for the discussion this week, it really solely focuses on the Upside of Stress book. So using McGonigal Chapter 2. So you're going to be looking at how stress has evolved from just a fight or flight response, connecting this chapter to that video I just referenced, the Portrait of a Killer, Stress Portrait of a Killer, and talk about it. Okay, so talk about why that's true. Why is that statement true that stress has evolved beyond just fight or flight? And then next, McGonigal says that there are many potential stress responses that our body has and that is built in that actually lead to more positive outcomes. What are some of those stress responses? What are some ways that we can picture or imagine our stress differently that might lead then to a different outcome? So what does she mean by that? And explain what those various responses are. And then last, you're going to be completing the Rethink Stress exercise. You're going to see these now throughout the rest of the chapters. There are these really great little exercises that she puts in the book so that as you're working through the chapter, you can try things out and see what you think. It's called Rethink Stress. And this is Rethink Your Stress Response. It's on page 57. And so it's asking you to think about your most recent stressful experience and what that was like for you. So you can read through it. But I want to know, like, when you think about that most recent stressful experience, which aspects of the stress response were present during or after that stressful experience. So using what is in the chapter there, tell me about that. Answer the questions that follow in that exercise. You'll see them, you'll know what I'm referring to, and share as much as you feel comfortable with exploring here. Okay, obviously for some of you, you may have been through something extremely stressful. Share as much as you can. You don't have to go into detail. You can be broad, but this is an opportunity to really share about your stress. Everyone is doing the same thing, and I'm hoping that will be kind of almost like a group therapy in a sense of just having an outlet, having a chance to talk about it, to share about it can be really therapeutic. And so discussing some of your answers to those questions, and then what are the positive byproducts of getting quote unquote stressed out. When we're stressed out, what are the positive byproducts that can come from that? We're not used to thinking of our stress as having anything positively related to it, but it actually does. I think that the more that you engage in this book, the more you're going to start to see that it really is all about how we think about things, how we envision things. We can physically be under stress, but we can actually talk ourselves out of it. We can look at it differently, and it really is fascinating what that does to the brain when we start to do that. So that's the discussion. And then you do have your second test this week. The test is covering chapters 3, 4, and 5. So it's 3 chapters this time. Last time it was 2 chapters. Still the same amount of questions. There's 40 multiple choice questions. So, the test covers a little less material from each chapter. Roughly 13-ish questions per chapter. So, it can't get real picky, if that's a clue, but you do need to know, a good amount of information because you don't know what is going to be asked of you from those 3 chapters. I did include a resource for you here. It's just something I found on multiple choice test taking. I often give this out at the beginning of the semester. I feel like it's really helpful just in how to strategize, how to attack multiple choice tests. I know that it's not everyone's strong point. It wasn't for me. When I was a student, I had to work really hard at kind of learning how to be a better test taker. So it just gives you some nice tips that I thought you might find helpful before you dive into exam 2, before you approach it. Make sure that you're leaving plenty of time to study. Oh, and now I'm realizing that the date here is totally wrong, so I'll change that. But just make sure that you are leaving plenty of time to study. You have until Sunday late. Make sure you don't start the test too late. You want to leave yourself 40 minutes to do it. If you start the test at 11:30, you're not going to have enough time, right? You're not going to have that 40 minutes to finish. So you just want to be aware of that and make sure you leave plenty of time to get through the test. And then also just leave plenty of time to study. Go back up, print out the objectives for every chapter, make sure you've outlined them and you've actually studied them, not just wrote the stuff down, but actually wrote it down and then studied it. Get started as early as you can. That would be helpful. And that would be my advice for week 6. But as we're approaching that second test, if you have any questions or want to check in with me, please just email me and let me know, and I'd be happy to do that with you.